Lovely, wonderful. Thanks so much, Margaret. Can I say it's just I'm so delighted to be here and to recognize so many faces as we come together. And I know for most of you, survival has been the new success over the last 2 years. But I think what's important mostly about today and about this event, those who are here in person as we come together, but also those at home who may be working as sole entrepreneurs or with a small group or field detached. It's important to say that entrepreneurs, as John has said rightly, we are different. We belong to a tribe. And what do tribes do? Tribes must come together. We come together because, let's be honest, and I was listening to a podcast this morning on the way in here, Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, on his podcast, Masters of Scale. And those of us who know about inspiration and about motivation and about leadership know that to be inspired, it's like fuel. You don't just eat a meal and it does you for the week or the month or the year. Inspiration is we need to continuously feed our brains with positivity. Just as our bodies are what we put into them, so too are our minds. So I was listening to this podcast this morning, and one of the things that struck me is that it is isolating and it is a lonely journey. And as Margaret rightly said earlier, entrepreneurship and leadership is a personal journey. We grow and we celebrate success together, but we fail alone. And in our sense, we have to deal with that journey. And that journey can be isolating. As we grow a business, firstly, we must move away from that group of people that are our colleagues and friends or family who have never started a business. So we're already isolated. We have to be brave enough to step away out of our comfort zone. Everything that we don't already have lies on the other side of that comfort zone. And so it's isolating because sometimes in business when things are not going well, you can't share it with your management team because you don't want to lose them because they have their own priorities of family and financial security. Very often you can't share that message with your bank or your lender or your funder because they may get spooked in terms of pulling overdraft or other facilities. And let's be honest, sometimes too in our personal relationships, we can't share that journey with our spouse because we don't want to concern or worry them that perhaps we can't pay for the kids' education or a holiday or meet the mortgage repayments. And so we carry that with us. The only people who can really understand that isolation is our tribe. You in this room and you at home, you know that we're on the same journey. We may be at different points on that journey, but we're on that shared journey. Coming together allows us to get the confidence that we are not alone. It's also an opportunity for shared learning. There's nobody in this room that isn't either ahead or behind somebody else on the journey. But the skills that are in this room and in this network, whether it's from sales and marketing to tech, to HR, to globalization, to internationalization, to scale, all of that is in this room. And if we work together, we can learn from each other. There's also a great opportunity, and I belong to the EY network, and I see Roger Wallace here, EY Entrepreneur of the Year network. Again, one of the things we've discovered through that network over recent years is that we are all collaborating together. We are doing business with other people. So to me, I think the fundamental part of being an entrepreneur is we don't do it alone. Two great lessons I learned from being an entrepreneur, from coaching and mentoring hundreds of entrepreneurs since my time in the enterprise boards and beyond, and to writing for the Sunday Independent, profiling 300 entrepreneurs, is this. If you want me to be great, you must first show me what great looks like. So it is that role model that we can learn, but the key fundamental of that is it's about building a network. It's the secret lesson to success. Jim Rohn put it very well many years ago, a speaker in the US. He said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. My father, growing up, would have said, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. We network together, and if you're just like kids playing on a green at the front of your house and you want to be a professional soccer player, you've got to up your game to go and meet others who are committed to their personal and professional journey as you are. And it is only in raising that stakes that we can grow and develop. I'm a champion and always have been of SMEs and small businesses. And for this reason, while we need FDI, and we know that that may be more perhaps transient than ever, and FDI is important, and multinationals are important. But as we've discovered in the last 2 years of this pandemic, It is small business owners, more than 95% of all the businesses in the country, who are the glue that holds our communities. They provide services. They create the wealth and the tax that goes to run our public services. And it's important for government, but also for us every day as we get up, to understand we cannot have a mature society unless we have the tax to fund those services. Wealth, before it is spent, must first be created. And it is us, the entrepreneurs, geographically dispersed, dotted across the country, who are doing that day in and day out. And I think sometimes that gets lost. And more importantly now, as we focus on what's new success, I want to say, and John talked about traits, and so did Margaret, I want to bring, if I can, in a very short condensing, about 10 traits of the entrepreneurs, but I want to focus on leadership and change and resilience. But the first thing I want to say is that in my understanding of studying success in business over 20, 30 years, success leaves clues. If you want to be successful, study those who have gone before you in your sector, because there is a path, there's a proven path, and there are traits that you can develop. Success has a lot less to do with intelligence and much more to do with psychology. In my experience, it's a mix of skill set and mindset. Skills are your technology, your ability to sell, your finance, your fundraising, your HR, your IP, creating, innovating, and staying relevant to the market. All of that are skills, and every one of those can be learned or hired. But the mindset is that which we bring ourselves, our own mark. And some of the traits I want to share with you, and John mentioned that as well, the whole idea of self-belief and optimism. Entrepreneurs are optimistic. That's our nature. And we have to believe in ourselves and our ideas. But sometimes we have to change the language. And I say this particularly, and I spot it everywhere I go. Entrepreneurs are positive, and our language is positive. But listen to so much of the rapport you hear across the country. When you ask somebody in Ireland today, how are you? They'll say, not too bad. Like, imagine the mentality, and there's nothing worse than hearing it in a Polish or a Latvian accent with an Irish slant to it. Not too bad. I watched this morning when Pedro came out here from the sound check. I asked him, how are you? He says, brilliant. So the next time anybody asks you how you are, say, brilliant, it's great to be alive. Why? Because it changes the conversation. Not too bad takes you down what's wrong with the country. We don't need that conversation. We don't need, as entrepreneurs, to focus on the problem. We need to focus on the solution. The other aspect of traits is really about risk-taking, and that is the single most defining attribute of an entrepreneur versus somebody who's not an entrepreneur, our ability to live with risk. I speak in schools a lot to kids because I think that, as we were talking about earlier, seeds grow where they're planted. And we have to teach our kids to take risks. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I've put a uniform on them this morning as they were going off to school. We send them to school to socialize, to normalize, and then ultimately we end up compromising them. Why? Because we want them to conform. And then in their early 20s, when we put them out to the universe, to the work, we expect them to be individual in terms of their thinking. In Ireland, we need to do something fundamental about failure and risk. It's all over the media. Somebody fails in Ireland, they're branded, failed. If you're in the US, failure is an apprenticeship. It's a badge of honor. It's a stepping stone to your ultimate success. You cannot succeed in anything in life unless you're willing, prepared to fail. We need to change that attitude in Ireland. Every business owner that I know who fails, everybody who struggles, I write them a note, I send them a text. After the presidential election of 2011, my phone did not ring for 18 months from anybody except close family and friends. Because we have this thing about somebody who fails at something, and what we need to do is put our arms around them and say, what have you learned in your last business? What can you do differently? Because you're now different, you're now more experienced. I think that's important. I think so too is our story, and Ivan covered it so eloquently. Storytelling, communicating, being an evangelist, engaging, enrolling, and people on that journey. More and more, if you ask young people, why are they attracted to particular businesses? It's not just about the salary. It's not about the beer or the canteen in Google. It's about purpose. It's about contribution. It's about impact. Young people are now motivated and engaged in climate, in fairness, in equality, in diversity. And that's really where businesses are going, ESG. It's all about what's the purpose and meaning. We know in life this is short. We know that at the end, our lives have to mean for something. We have to know that if we're spending the next 30 or 40 years in a job, it has to be something that we believe in, that we're passionate about, that allows us to grow and develop, to become the best person we can, but also to make our contribution to make the world a better place. I want to talk briefly about leadership, because this is what we're here about. Leadership is different. We talk about leadership and management. John mentioned it. Leadership and management are different. People confuse them. Management is about doing things right. Leadership is about doing the right things. Think of COVID for retail stores, bricks and mortar. When COVID came, you could do all you wanted in the shop. You could have it polished, you could have it full of stock. You can't manage it. What you needed to do was change. Stores had to go online. They had to do something different. If you think too of restaurants were closed. What did they do? The innovators went for home delivery, changed their entire dynamic. One of my colleagues and close friends in the EY network, Brian Lee of Chopped, met him yesterday morning for coffee. Again, looking at what do we do? Brian's business was closed. When he eventually got open, he had a Chopped restaurant, 50 of them across the country, selling to office workers. There were no office workers. So at the evening time, what did he do? He sweated his asset. When the shop closed at 6 o'clock, after all the offices where people were gone home, the office workers were gone home, what did he do? He put in a neat pizza brand, pizza oven, and started to deliver at home to where people were. So he sweated the asset and changed. Sometimes our pivots don't come in the good days. Our pivot comes from adversity. I think too as well is that leadership journey that we're on. We change from being founders. We change from being managers, and then we must become leaders. And that's a different skill. Any of you who have read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, know what I'm talking about when we say we have to move from working in our business to working on it. And I think the fundamental thing, whether it's COVID or Brexit or tech or recruitment challenges, what we're faced with in business every single day is change. Darwin put it very well when he talked about the theory of evolution, that it's not the most intelligent that survive of the species, but those who are most adaptable to change. And change comes every day in different formats. I was doing an MC role 2 years ago for a transport organization, and somebody said to me, can you give us a quote about change? And I said, well, I'll give you one in the transport, and it's this. A bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to take the turn. So every day we need to take the turn. We can't complain about the turn. We need to take the turn. And one of the things we notice in what's changing massive, we're living in an unprecedented time of change, globalization and technology. Think of all the businesses that have emerged in the last number of years as a result of technology. I can tell you, and I tell the young people, don't worry about what you're learning in the academic skill today, because you can look any of that up on Google. Train your mind to solve problems. Because I'm going to tell you this, and we all know it, based on what has happened in the last 30 years of tech and globalization in our lives, our young people and my children will be growing, will be having jobs that are not yet developed, and they will be having them in industries that are not even yet conceived. That is the pace of change. I think as we're looking, again, I noticed yesterday when Facebook was changing its name to Meta, they're now going into sport and education using VR and augmented reality. We're going to see food going from when I grew up in farming, being grown in warehouses as opposed to in the field. You're going to see health moving from being delivered in person to being health, remote monitoring of patients. You're going to see as well all of these things creating opportunities. We're going to see the entire society shift. And who's going to lead that shift and that change? Only entrepreneurs who spot opportunities. And all of us, when we distill entrepreneurship down to this, it is about solving problems. It is about being of service. And generally, as we look in the first days to survive, it's about making enough money to survive. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when we chunk it up, what is our why? What is our purpose? And it's not always about doing good. Well, it's also about doing good. Because everybody I know, whoever makes a lot of money, most of it they give away at the end. Why? Because it is not about that. It is about the personal journey. You are on it. I celebrate the fact that you have the courage, the confidence, the innovation, and the risk-taking to start your business and to grow it every day, and know the contribution that you're making to the people you employ, but also to your community, to society, to the economy, and to all those who are not as fortunate as we are. And let's celebrate that, and let's celebrate coming together to make a difference. Life is not, and business is not really all about making money. It's ultimately about making a difference. And I wish you well in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Andy.